Welcome back, Girly Pops, to the final race of the season. It's a sad day. We all knew it would come, but fear not. It is only 82 days until IndyCar is back on track. So rest up and be ready, ladies and gents.
So, starting off this episode, I was awoken Friday morning to some alarming news that I then immediately felt the urge to share with everyone else alive on the planet who knows anything about F1, so that then they could wake up and be met with the same alarming news. In case you live under a rock or haven't been on your phone in about a week, four-time world champion Max Verstappen is going to be a dad. Massive congratulations to him. Congrats on the world championship. Congrats on your little baby bean that's on the way. I think we can all agree when we see, the way that he's been there for P while him and Kelly have been together. I'm actually really excited to see Max. I mean, he's a bonus dad right now, but I want to see him full-fledged dad mode, New Balances with the high socks and cargo shorts. But I think before we go any further, while we're still celebrating Daddy Max, what are y'all's predictions? I don't know. I just have this feeling that it's going to be Mad Max Jr. and it's going to be a boy.
I stand by my twins. I think it's going to be a boy girl twin.
I just to be different than both of y'all, so we all have a chance of being right. I think it's gonna be a little girl, and then P's gonna have a little sister.
I think she'd be such a good big sister. Moving on from Max and Kelly and all of their congratulations and great news into Abu Dhabi weekend, starting off with free practice one. This was our rookie session, baby. So, a bunch of rookies competing or running in free practice. A few that we haven't really seen so far this year. Kind of in order, we had Felipe Drugovich with Aston Martin, Hirakawa with McLaren, Isaac Hadjar with Red Bull, Iwasa with B-Carb, and then Mr. Arthur Leclerc at Ferrari. So we had Leclerc, and then I think Luke Browning at Williams. I'll give an honorary rookie to Jack Doohan, even though we're still really mad at him. He did officially step into the car as a main driver for the first time this week. And then Charles Leclerc gets to literally be on track alongside his own brother. This is the first time two brothers have competed in a session together as teammates, and they gave each other their cute little waves. Charles did end up topping the timings. However, we had a feeling going into the rest of the weekend that he was going to be facing a grid penalty because he did have to replace the energy store on his car, which is just typical Ferrari. I feel like I can't remember the last time they had a season where they didn't go over their parts allotments.
So, rolling into qualifying, we had some major standouts in qualifying for this session. I woke up just in time for qualifying. I was lying in bed. I had my laptop on the other pillow, trying to keep my eyes open, watching qualifying. And then I was suddenly violently awoken with Bottas just absolutely flying out of nowhere. I don't know how the Sauber suddenly worked, but it did. So we will get back to Bottas in a second, but some shocking Q1 and Q2 exits. We have Lewis Hamilton, who was eliminated in Q1 due to a bollard being stuck under his car. I think K-Mag hit it and then it ended up in the middle of the track and Lewis ran over it and it got stuck under his car. So he was unable to improve on his lap time. So that was highly unfortunate because everyone was really hoping this is last race with Mercedes. We hope he qualifies well. Blah, blah, blah. So that was sad to see. And then the other one is Charles. He got eliminated in Q2 due to his lap time being deleted. So he ended up starting in 19th. So again, with the whole McLaren-Ferrari battle, I mean, it was a long shot anyways with McLaren being 21 points ahead. But everyone was like, oh, maybe. And then when that happened, they're like, oh, he's starting 19th. There's now no way with Lando got on pole and Oscar came second. So they were locked out on the front row with Carlos in third. But our other standouts of Q3 was Bottas making it into Q3. First of all, wild. At one point in one of the sessions, he topped the times. And I was like, what is happening? What alternate reality are we living in right now? And then we had Mr. Hulkenberg on provisional pole, and I actually screamed. I was in my bed, and I was like, what the heck is happening right now? Hulkenberg is on provisional pole. Because everyone was like, all the jokes this weekend about like K-Mag willing to commit like war crimes to get Hulkenberg on a podium. So that was like shocking. Quickly, it was taken away from him, but he ended up qualifying 4th, which then was also quickly taken away from him when he got a 3-place grid penalty for overtaking at pit exit, which I just think they should have just decided to be blind and not do that to him, because why? I mean, it's Hulkenberg and he's getting P4 and you're going to do that to him. That was just really unfortunate. But
Lando on pole, same amount of pole positions as Max Verstappen this year. I want to throw that in there.
But he was only able to convert 2 of them into leading laps.
Yeah, not even into which, just leading laps. I mean, he's gotten, finally, practice makes perfect. The past 2 race weekends, he has kept the
He's done well.
lead.
Well, like he
Good
said
job.
for himself, next year's his year too.
Okay, sweetie.
Sure, Key.
No, I actually am concerned that Ferrari's going to up their game, and that's not going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they've Sir Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, and Charles Leclerc.
And then too, this qualifying was so messy with like so many people getting their lap times deleted, and then like Checo got a lap time deleted, Oscar got a lap time deleted. They both got theirs reinstated. Other people didn't, and I'm like, Valtteri Bottas is in Q3. Cool.
That's like, I mean, that's all I really took away from that was Hulk in P4 and Valtteri getting into Q3, because like the commentators were so Ruth Buscombe, every time they panned back to her, she was like jumping up and down because like she worked, like she was on the Alfa Romeo team, like the strategist, so she was like so excited for him. She, every time they would like talk about something, but then she's like, but Valtteri in Q3. She was so cute.
And now on to the main event, McLaren versus Ferrari. So somehow, one way or another, the constructorship battle has been drug out to the last race, which is more exciting for, I think, a fan experience wise, but definitely high stakes. A lot was riding on quali, which I kind of feel like set the tone, even if it was more like mental game with the drivers of like how they stacked out. Like Carlos once again having to carry Ferrari, Charles all the way back in, BFE. But I mean, I still had hope. I'm a Ferrari fan first. Don't let the McLaren orange I'm wearing currently right now
Papaya
deceive you. So I did still have hope deep in my little like crevice of a heart that they would win, but that didn't happen. It's okay. It's okay. They got 2 and 3, so I'm happy for them that they were able to have their C-squared last moments. Lando wins the race, of course, which very well deserved. He had an amazing race. Even I can't debate that. And him converting, pole to basically lead of the entire race. Congratulations for him. Practice does make perfect. Woo! This, I think it had been like what? It was 88 was the last time that McLaren won the constructorship title. 98. I know it had an 8 in the end. So that's been
what? Any of us were born.
26 years. So well deserved for McLaren. Congrats. I give you all the praise and kudos.
And the youngest driver pairing. So, like Kaylee mentioned, we have the Ferraris and the McLarens. Honestly, I think if anything, qualifying really like lit a fire under Ferrari's butts, because it was like, this is do or die. 21 points between them. We will crash out or win, whatever happens first. So starting the race, Lando P1, Oscar P2, Carlos P3. Lando keeps the lead. And Mr. Max Verstappen, listen, he's already on the start of a good weekend. He is going to be a dad. He has been fighting with George Russell, and he's a 4-time world champion. So, like, who's going to tell him what to do? Nobody. Max makes a dive up from P4 to the inside of Oscar at turn 1, clips him, spins both of them out. I think Oscar bore the brunt of this and falls, pretty far down the order. Max does later get a 10-second penalty for causing a collision, and when Oscar is told on his radio, he just goes, good, which is, as per usual, iconic Oscar moments. A man of few words, but impactful ones.
Did you hear the other radio message Oscar had?
Sounds
He
about
said
like
that's the move of a world champion.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, Oscar, eat them down. Because he normally doesn't say anything either. So I was like, we're getting petty on the radio now.
He really should give a like master class on sarcasm because the man understands it.
He does.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing that we have kind of been dreading about this being the final race of the season is kind of having the awareness that this is going to be the last race where we see quite a few of the drivers on the grid. We're definitely going to get into that kind of as we go through the rest of the race, but just, holding space for it right now.
Well, obviously, the Oscar Max synchronized spinning, which honestly, beautiful from the aerial cam. I was like, this is stunning. Keep it going. We did have some more drama, and that was Bottas, who had such a great qualifying position, had a terrible start and lost a couple places in the beginning, and then also just ended up causing a collision with Checo, which ultimately caused Checo to spin out and DNF in lap 1, causing a virtual safety car to come out for just like 1 or 2 laps because Checo very conveniently spun out right by one of the little like openings with the marshals to take the car out. Emergency exits. I don't know what they're called. It wasn't a runoff zone. It was just like where they can open it up. Anyway, so that was very considerate of him to do that. So they just had the virtual safety car for a short amount of time to get him off the track. But when we started back up again, Oscar just decided to play bumper cars with Franco Colapinto. And poor Franco in his last race got a puncture because of that. So that was rip to him, which this just started the trend of drivers on their last race having terrible luck. So we have Bottas, maybe Checo, if the rumors are true, and Franco already not starting off on the greatest foot. Later, Bottas does receive a 10-second penalty as well for his causing a collision. But in all of this chaos, there were three drivers that made out very well. Charles being number 1, moving up 11 places in 1 lap is absolutely wild. My dad and I all of a sudden were like, wait, what? When did Charles, I was like, is this wrong? Did they mess up? But no, he somehow managed to get up 11 places. And then K-Mag makes up 7 places at the start. And then I'm not sure how many places Lewis makes up at the start, but he also has moved up a decent little bit at the start. So that was shocking. So then again, like my little Ferrari de Lulu heart was like, maybe we can still win this if Charles is, moving up the pack and we have Carlos at the front and Oscar is now spun out at the back. But as we know, that does not pan out. Other little things was Liam Lawson. He came into pits and they didn't put on one of his tires securely. And so he goes out of the pit lane and he radios in like, something's wrong, guys. And they're like, oh, okay, come back into the pit. So he comes back in 1 lap later and they fix it. And I was like, they were talking about, oh, they'll probably just give him a monetary fine because it wasn't his fault. He like instantly told the engineers and he came back in, he fixed it. Nothing was loose. There weren't wheels rolling down the track. But alas, the FIA and their crazy penalties decided to give him a 10-second stop-go penalty. So that absolutely destroyed his race. And on top of that, the last lap of the race, I don't know what happened, but he just DNF'd. Like the last lap.
All I saw was that his like car, I guess, was like smoking.
Yeah, because it was like just before Lando crossed the line. So they were trying to like do the whole commentary of like Lando and then like follow the whole George Lewis storyline. And then there was like pan to like him just in the gravel trap and they're like yellow flag in the sector 2, Liam Lawson DNF. And so I don't really know what happened because there was a lot going on when that happened.
Well, with all these like more severe penalties too, it's like I literally can't keep my head on straight. I mean, what was it? Joe also got a penalty for a false start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
leave him alone.
We gotta keep worst car. We've got to keep the false start because we had Vegas and Qatar and now Abu Dhabi. So we just had to get that 3 in a row of someone getting a false start. So yeah, again, another driver whose last race gets a penalty. Really, just not. I don't know what was in the water. They really just wanted to like add insult to injury with these poor guys last race. K-Mag also had some issues. Him and Bottas got into it. Bottas locked up. K-Mag drove into Bottas. It was not K-Mag's fault. But then that DNF'd Bottas again. Or not everyone is just having some bad luck. K-Mag, though, goes in and pits for softs, and he's like, well, I'm not going to get any points. I might as well get the fastest lap and take that point away from someone else. So he goes on to do that. So slay for him goes out with his last race. At least he gets the fastest lap. He does at least finish the race and takes that point away from, I think Lewis had the second fastest lap, so took that away from Lewis. The last little other segment is Oscar Piastri had an incredible recovery drive with not only having his incident with Max, later on getting a 10-second penalty for causing the collision with Colapinto, but is able to drive up through the pack and secure a point and finish in P10. So good job, Oscar.
So on to our favorite French driver, Pierre, lap 18. I mean, even the commentators were, really into this. He was battling it out with Yuki and just in and out and in and out and fighting back and forth. And it was probably one of the most memorable parts of the race. There were lots of memorable parts of this race, but that was one of the more positive ones, especially coming from him, because he has had a really good second half of the season and sort of taken Alpine from starting at the back to now, securing sixth in the constructorship. So congratulations to Pierre. Congratulations on no damage to your car this entire season. So on to Sir Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, the man, the myth, the legend. I'm actually going to read to everyone a quote from him that he says as he's like coming past the start finish before he does his donuts. And he's talking to Bono and his team and says, "We dreamed alone, but together we believed. And as a team, we achieved things. And thank you all, the courage, determination, the passion for seeing me and supporting me. Started out as a leap of faith and turned into a journey into the history books. We did everything together. I'm so grateful to everyone, both here and back at the factory. From the bottom of my heart, you're the best." And it was just like a really sweet message because this is basically his farewell. This is his swan song with a team that wasn't his foundation, but was there for such critical moments in his life that I thought it was just very touching, regardless of how things have shaken out this last year with Toto, George, the media, the engineers. He still has great love for them. And so a little bit about him doing the race, because Lauren kind of mentioned this earlier. Lewis was on some type of planet moving up and down and driving probably one of his best races since Vegas. Well, I guess Vegas was literally the race before.
Since Silverstone.
This and Vegas in the second half of the season. So he was able to stay out till lap 33, and then he finally pitted. Lewis was also the only driver to start out on the hards, so keep that in mind. Comes out P7, and by lap 42, he is up to 5th place, and there's only a 14.5 second gap. And then not even 5 laps later, it's down to 9.8. At 53, it's down to 4.5. To 56, it's at 1.6. And then in the final lap, in under a second, he gets past George and claims P4. And I've heard a lot of discourse from different people, even in my own life, who were like, "It was so sweet. George could have fought harder, and that's why Lewis got past." And I was like, well, that was a choice to say. That was a choice to say.
So this is Lewis Hamilton that we're talking. Lewis Hamilton that we're talking about.
I was like, oh, so that was a choice. Not necessarily a right one, but certainly a choice to say. And even the commentators were like, Lewis would not have wanted George to give him that, and George would not have wanted to give Lewis that win. It was so good.
The actual overtake itself was excellent. And he did not seem confident in himself at first when they were like, it's a 14 whatever second gap. He was like, what the fuck? And then the fact that Bono was like, you can do that. And then Lewis Hamilton was like, I can do that.
You're right. I can.
Well, then Toto even got on, and he was like, you can do this, Lewis. Like,
yeah,
I can't do his accent. You can do this, Lewis. Lewis.
And I love to...
Lewis, you can do this.
That was pretty
Rosberg
good. Oh my god.
The end, fangirling about the overtake. And then, too, he was like, well, that's my friend. We absolutely do have to give our thoughts and prayers to Nico Rosberg after having to work with Danica Patrick this week.
Yeah.
It's the fact, too, that it's not just Jensen Button who's just like, it's everyone who works with her. You'd have to hope that Sky Sports is like actually like watching the ratings, and the fact that I bet you $100 that every time it like clips to her, people like change the channel.
If I know she's working a race, I am watching the F1 TV broadcast. I am not on Sky Sports.
So Charles, honestly, he kind of redeemed himself in my eyes this weekend.
He killed it. He killed it.
I have
Ruthless.
nothing but good things to say. To be able to come back from P19 to P3 within a race, like that was some. He went and took a class from Max Verstappen before the race. He was like, "Give me your pointers, please. Like, I know you've already won the Drivers' World Champion. You don't need anything else. Give me all your secrets, sir."
All I'm saying is if Charles Leclerc can drive the way he did this race all of next season, that's a world championship.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
The
And
problem,
I think
he is just so inconsistent, and that is his issue. Because when he puts on a performance, like, he nails it. And he either nails it or just is there.
Charles Leclerc, good job.
good job.
Incredible.
All
10
around.
out of 10. 11 out of 10, honestly.
Driver of the day.
Yeah, driver of the
Well
day.
deserved driver of the day.
For real.
Yeah. All right. So that kind of wraps up the race itself. So Lando gets another dub, 4 wins for number 4 this season. McLaren are the world champions, and we got a great podium, in my opinion. Can't complain. But that brings us into what was the final stack up for the championships. So your top 10 in the Drivers' Championship in order. We've got Max, then Lando, then Charles, Oscar, Carlos, then George, Lewis, Checo, and then Alonso. And Pierre Gasly, with his amazing drive, gets himself that 10th spot.
I'm kind of upset about that. Like, I love Pierre, but that would have been Nico's. And whatever.
And then in the Constructors' Championship, the order for next year on the pit lane, because that's how they do it. McLaren, number 1. Ferrari, number 2. Big redemption for both of them. Dare I say the era of Red Bull, right? Dare I say Red Bull dominance. Gone.
Over.
A thing of the past. So Red Bull in 3rd, Mercedes in 4th. I think we all could have expected that those would win the top 4 teams. I don't think at the beginning of the year we would have expected them in that order.
Mm-mm.
And then 5th went to Aston Martin, which I think is fairly impressive considering how many times Lance DNF'd. Thanks, Fernando. Alpine in 6th. Haas with a hot 7th. A Visa Cash Out, buy one, get one free, with all of their drivers swapping in 8th. Williams, unfortunately, in 9th, but not last. And then Sauber. We're going to come back to our sad segment. Well, we're going to actually settle in on it and feel our feelings together.
Yes. So I've written a couple things about Lewis Hamilton. As we all know, he's my favorite driver. Mercedes was never my favorite team. It's always been Ferrari. So, like, I know a lot of people are moving on from they were Mercedes fans because they were Lewis fans. One of those people being my dad. So as soon as that Lewis red merch comes out, he will be purchasing. But as someone who has been a Lewis fan since the beginning, and I really got into F1 during the, like, Mercedes dominance era around, like, 2013, or I guess 2013 was the end of Red Bull, so like 2014, 2015. It was the end of an absolute iconic era. It was like the most successful driver team pairing ever. He was there for 12 years, and it really was, like how he said in his message, like a leap of faith, because he had gone from like coming second place in the Drivers' Championship his rookie year, losing out by 1 point to Kimi Räikkönen, to the following year winning the World Drivers' Championship, being super successful at McLaren, and then deciding to join the new team of Mercedes. And everyone was like, "You're crazy. Like, I can't believe you're doing that." And then 1 season later goes on to winning another title, which is absolutely wild. I had to keep reminding myself that he's not retiring. Like, he's just leaving Mercedes.
It felt like it.
Because it was so dramatic not for no reason, but it was just, I kind of loved how dramatic it was. But I loved how he had his own little spot, and he did his donuts on the French straight. That was so cool. And the radio message from Toto where he said, if we can't win, it should be you. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Right, that they'll be rooting for him.
Yeah.
That message was so sweet.
That
where he's
killed
like,
me.
I'm proud of you. It's like,
Him and
Yeah.
Bono killed me.
I
Him
know.
hugging Toto in the garage killed me. Him when he did finally like stop the car and like lift up and you can see the like tears through his visor inside his helmet.
Like,
and then he gets out of the car and just like leans his head against, and I'm like, I know that he's sobbing in there and I'm sobbing with him because
I know.
I mean,
that whole weekend was like soaking up every little moment that he possibly could and like really trying to be present and take it all in and like be present with the team and like just so grateful to the fans and everything. Like at the end of the race, he was like in the garage taking a one-on-one photo with every single team member. He was standing there hugging them picture. Like I thought that he didn't have to do that. That was so sweet. I mean, that is like a family to him. He has been there for so long through like such a major part of his career is because of Mercedes. So to see him in red next season is going to be an adjustment, but I'm very excited, as we've talked about all season long, because that is my favorite driver going to my favorite team, and I hope they treat him well, or I will fly to Maranello and fight them. But I have absolutely no idea what me and the rest of just F1 in general and F1 fans are going to do when he retires, because if we were all this emotional when he was just leaving Mercedes, like, don't talk
calling
to me.
out of work, locking myself in a room.
Yeah. Like, F1 should just actually cease to exist when he retires. Like, we don't need it anymore.
And then your other favorite too, Lauren. This is just a rough race weekend for you. This is
just a lot for me. At least they're not leaving F1, because then I would really genuinely not be okay, because I'm like already not okay and they're not even leaving. As much as I am happy for Lewis going to Ferrari, they had to kick out my favorite Ferrari driver in order for that to happen. So Carlos, it was his last race with Ferrari. But honestly, it couldn't have ended like on a better note for him. Like getting to be on the podium at his last race with Ferrari with his teammate and have a double Ferrari podium, and then Lando also being on there. So his old teammate, who was like his closest friend on the grid too.
Boyfriend.
It was like the perfect like closure for him. Charles's like monologue rant that he went on in the post-race conference about Carlos was so sweet, and like he literally just like talked about him like so positively and how much he's gonna miss him and how much he's an asset to the team and how much he learned from Carlos. Like he went on for like 2 minutes and it was just so genuine and so sweet from him, because they've had their like tiffs obviously, but overall it's been a great teammate pairing and they've done some awesome stuff together. And Charles's little gracias Carlos helmet with a little chili pepper was so sweet, and also the special fireproof suit that Carlos had, all his like podiums and race wins with Ferrari, and then he had his special little race suit that had the Italian flag on it. So I thought that was very sweet to kind of like
wrap it up.
Yeah, commemorate that. Another sad moment was in the media pen. I think it was also after the race. His press officer, she was standing with
crying,
fighting back tears. I was like, that's like one of the staff members that works the closest with the driver. And so if that's someone you've worked with closely for the past like 4 years, the poor girl could not keep it together. And so I think it just shows how much
they love him.
They love him and how much they are like a family. And he obviously is a great person to like making this much of an impact on his team that he's leaving.
I mean, what is it? Isn't it his trainer is going with him to Williams? Is his engineer going to?
A whole bunch of them. Like half a team, 55, is going to Williams, which says so much about him as a person. So much about. Like, that speaks volumes.
I think, too, it, like, really goes to show, like, him and Charles' relationship, the way that they, like, held onto each other on that podium ceremony and that, like, moment of, like, finality, because like Lando was up there and that's sick, but I think this weekend was more important for like Carlos and Charles' relationship than like anything else, because like him and Lando are friends and they're gonna stay friends. We know that.
I feel like it was just a good closure for them together at Ferrari to both be up on that podium.
I hope
very end of an era.
Had a private conversation with Charles now that he's free from Ferrari Delulu and said to him like, do not let them push you around, push back. I hope that's something Charles learns from him or learned from him. We've got 2 drivers moving teams, so Hulkenberg to Audi, Ocon to Haas.
Well, and then Carlos to Williams.
Carlos to Williams. I mean, yeah, besides, because we had Lewis to Ferrari, Carlos to
Lewis
Williams.
To Ferrari, yeah.
So those are our other ones, moving teams. But then recapping our drivers who are out of seats.
Rip.
Franco.
I'm still not over it. I hope that the rumor mill is true. Valtteri Bottas back to Mercedes, but as the reserve driver. I could see it. Maybe he takes George's seat. I don't know.
Imagine being a reserve driver to a child.
To Kimmy. Okay, wait, but did you see the rumor that now Toto potentially wants to buy Carlos up to Mercedes and send Kimmy down to Williams? We told you to do that at
I
the
would
beginning of the
hope
season.
so.
I know. We've been telling you to do that forever. And
because Toto Wolff, you're stupid.
Yeah, I need to be his advisor.
Zhou Guan Yu, hopefully, maybe fingers crossed, going to Ferrari as a reserve driver. I also am expecting that I wouldn't be surprised if they announce Arthur Leclerc as one of their reserve drivers, because he's already a testing driver. Mm-hmm. Also, did you guys see Zhou's donuts? The donuts that he did on track?
I know.
I love that guy. He's so underrated, and I feel like I didn't get to, enjoy him enough, but I hope... Well, he said, too, he's like, I don't think that this is the end of my story. And I was like, murdered me.
I know, he seems like such a sweet, guy.
And then the last of our drivers that we won't be seeing next year, K-Mag. But we do already have it confirmed that he is going to endurance racing. So
he is going to be racing for the BMW hypercar team in WEC. So I'm very excited about that because I will be watching him.
I feel like he's kind of not happy, but the radio, was it his radio? His wife?
That was
getting
so
on the radio.
Sweet.
Congratulations. Welcome home to me and the girls.
WEC has such a
work-life
shorter
balance.
calendar, and he can actually be home more because 24 races in a season when you have kids, that's a lot. So I'm sure the Magnussen family is not mad about this, to be honest.
So Red Bull and the ever-revolving door of seats. Honestly, we don't know. I know that Helmut Marko had made comments that decisions were going to be made by Monday tonight as of we are recording this podcast, but we probably wouldn't hear anything until midweek. So maybe we will find out if Liam Lawson gets moved up, if Franco Colapinto gets a seat, if Checo's gone.
If Max is retiring, I don't know.
You could pull any rumor out of a hat, and it would be about Red Bull.
There's a rumor about everything. Max might retire. Checo's getting canned. Checo's not getting canned because Max might retire. Yuki's getting the Red Bull seat. No, Liam's getting the Red Bull seat. And then Isaac's coming in for V-Carb. I feel like they're just dumping every Red Bull, whether it's senior or junior person, into a hat and shaking it and going, okay, which one? And they're
okay, you get the seat, you get the seat. I'm just not gonna be surprised about anything that comes out. They're if they were oh yeah, Max is gonna be in the V-Carb, I'd be
yep,
he'd probably win in it.
He would win another world championship.
Cool. That wouldn't even surprise me.
I want Franco to go race for Red Bull. That's my dream.
I know.
I don't know if Red Bull's going to be willing to pay what Williams wants for him. They already basically said that they're not interested anymore. So, listen, I have already said my dream lineup is Yuki and Max, and then I would allow in the V-Carb Isaac and Liam.
I guess the other racing series that wrapped up this weekend in Abu Dhabi was also Formula 2. Their championship was decided. So, going into the weekend was Bortoleto versus Hadjar, and they were separated by half of a point. So Bortoleto came in with 188.5 points, and Isaac Hadjar came in with 188 points. So that's... I have
a question.
Yes.
How does one get half a point?
They've had this in other races before. I think it's when they have a short race or something happens, or the one time...
to end it early.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the reason they have half a point, but there was one F2 race this year where two people ended at the exact same time and they split the difference. They split the point. So that could have been it. So after the sprint race, Bortoleto comes P2 in the sprint race. Hadjar doesn't podium in that. I'm not sure where he comes. So going into the feature race, he is up by a bit because of that sprint race podium. Going into the feature race, he also comes P2, so solidifies the championship, and he will be on the F1 grid next year. Actually, he is at Sauber alongside Hulkenberg, so big congratulations to Bortoletto, and excited to see what he can do in F1 next year. And another fun fact about the F2 season this year, which it's honestly like been a wild season, and I wish that, because most of their races of the season are in Europe, and so they're before the F1 races, and so it's like 6 or 7 in the morning for me, and I just can't do that. If I'm already getting up for F1, that's a bit too much. So like I wish I was able to follow it a little bit more closely this season, because every single team in F2 has won a race this season, which is wild. So it just showed how competitive everyone has been. There's not been one team or that's just been completely dominant. So that's my little F2 fun fact. But that's
You know what else
the
is
championship.
also crazy?
What?
Do you know that Franco Colapinto scored more points in F2 this year than Ollie Behrman, even though he was in more F1 races than Ollie Behrman? And then our last series wrapping up this week. Ugh, what a weekend. F1 Academy. Abby Pulling is now officially the champion. We did say that last week, and then they basically said, no, because we added a third race, and there's technically a very small statistical chance that she would no longer be it, we're revoking it. So they revoked it for her to win it anyway. Cool, F1 Academy. Dorian Pont, P2, and then Maya Wogue, who is part of the Ferrari Driver Academy, P3 in the championship. Like we talked about last week, because they had to cancel the second race in Qatar, they did 3 races this week. Abby won race 1 and 2 and finished P2 in race 3. Unfortunately, Chloe Chambers did not have her best weekend, but she did podium during race 2. And then the Red Bull junior driver, Hamda Alkhabezi, killed it. 2 podiums this weekend.
Her home race.
Her home race really showed up. If I remember correctly, they were in F1 Academy last year as well, her and her sisters, so I believe that this will be their last year
season.
racing in it,
Yes.
eligibility-wise. So there's quite a few F1 Academy drivers that aren't going to be
half
eligible.
the grid, or more than half the grid, is not going to be there.
Yeah, and that's kind of the summary on F1 Academy. Unless you guys have anything else you want to throw in on it.
Just on top of Abby Pulling continuing to dominate, winning race 1 and 2 and coming P2 in race 3, she got triple pole for all 3 races. So really just
killing it.
Slayed as she has been doing this entire season. So big congrats to her, and I think she is going to do some big things in her career.
Mm-hmm. I say no Bratnick this week. Good job, McLaren. Ferrari, we love you.
For a final time, we close the curtain. A good night, and I love you. And we will see you again come next year.